here, so I would like to call the Architectural Review Board meeting for Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 to order. Madam Secretary, if you'd please call the roll.
Arb Johnson. Jennifer Oberlin.
Here.
Patty Cross.
Here.
Rebecca Turner. Here. Stuart Stoltz.
Here.
Brittany Sands.
Here.
Nicole Conkle.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on, next item is the approval of minutes from our November 15th, 2022 meeting, as we did not meet in December. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think the ayes have it. All right, moving on to new business. Item number 1 is the Chairperson'S Report and Administrative Approvals. For my report, I'm going to wish you all a Happy New Year. I also want to acknowledge and introduce our newest board member, Rebecca Turner, and ask Rebecca if she wouldn't give us a brief introduction of herself.
Thank you. Rebecca Turner. I'm a native of Frankfort. I am an architectural historian with a master's degree from the University of Kentucky. I was previously the executive director of downtown Frankfort and worked in transportation, and I'm now employed by AECOM, which is a consulting engineering design firm.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. We're happy to have you serve with us. After that, I do not believe, I'm sorry I didn't ask before, Brittany, but I don't think you've had another comprehensive plan meeting yet. I think, is it next week maybe?
Yes, Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll follow up with that next month. And then I'll ask Vicki to go over the administrative approvals for us.
Good evening, Vicki Bierenberg, Historic Preservation Officer. From the period starting November 9th until January 10th, 2023, we have 5 administrative approvals. 3 are in the Special Historic Zoning District. At 900 Wilkinson, we issued a permit to construct a very small kind of deck landing at the rear of that property. That's the Limewater restaurant. And they were looking for a way to facilitate getting out of the kitchen back door to the porch area for restaurant service when the weather is nice. So that's what that is. 310 Long Lane. That applicant is here this evening for a conditional use permit. We administratively approved some other work on the property that has no exterior effect, including rebuilding a deck in kind, concrete walkway replacement, concrete patio, and repairs to the driveway. 407 West Main Street, box gutter repair. And then in the Special Capital Zoning District at 530 Steel Street, we issued a permit to replace an asphalt roof in kind, and at 323 3rd Street, construction of a 6-foot privacy fence.
Great, thank you, Vicki. So moving on to item number 2 under new business, that is the election of officers for the upcoming year. And go, Patty.
I would like to nominate Jennifer Oberlin to have an additional year as chair.
Thank you. I'll second.
So Ms. Conkle, thank you.
Please call the roll.
Sure. Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Stoltz.
Aye.
Ms. Sands.
Yes.
Ms. Conkle.
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin.
Yes.
Ms. Cross.
Yes.
And Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And now I might have to confer with Ed and Vicki on this, but we did vice chair last year. Later, do we need to go ahead and do vice chair?
It would be my recommendation we do
Okay.
vice chair and secretary treasurer.
Okay. All right, and so I'll take a nomination for vice chair.
Well, here's one. I haven't asked this person either, but I would nominate Irma Johnson to be vice chair.
I'd second. Okay.
Is that you who seconded?
Okay.
Would you like for me to call the roll again?
Sure, I'm sorry, yes.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz? Ms. Sams?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is that all?
You can stop there, or you can do a secretary treasurer if you want to
I
have
think-
someone doing
yeah.
a report about funds. So,
I think we traditionally stop at vice chair, so we'll stop there. Thank you, guys. Next in your packet was the proposed 2023 calendar. So new business item number 3 is the adoption of the 2023 ARB meeting calendar. And so I will entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Sams?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so that is the 2023 calendar. It's adopted and official. And now moving on to item number 4 of new business. If the Madam Secretary would please review the proposal.
In accordance with Articles 4, 17, 18, and 19 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, William C. Harrod of Harrod Holdings LLC requests a conditional use permit to operate a non-owner occupied short-term rental at the property located at 310 Long Lane. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 061 2404 00600.
Okay, this first application concerns this property at 310 Long Lane, which is located in a special historic zoning district. It was built in the 1990s, so it is less than 50 years old and is a non-contributing structure to the National Register District. The application is for a conditional use permit for a non-owner occupied short-term rental. The proposal does meet all of the requirements outlined in Article 12 and 19 for that use. Here is a PVA map that shows the location of the structure. You can see it faces Long Lane, which is kind of an alley that runs between Wilkinson and Washington Streets. This house is not historic, but the adjacent houses on Long Lane are historic, and they are associated with Frankfort's African American history. This new house does fit in well with that context in terms of its size and manner of construction. In 1901, there actually was a house shown on the Sanborn fire insurance maps in this location, and the survey form that was included in your packet suggests that this house was built on the previous building's foundation, although I don't know if that's true or not. Here are some additional photos to give you a sense of the property. You can see that there is a driveway here which provides the off-street parking. There's a photo looking from the rear. Those are the other two little historic houses on Long Lane that are adjacent to this property. This is a view looking directly south down Long Lane. And this is the view looking directly north. I've included this map in the presentation, which shows the Special Historic Zoning District, which are those properties that are in red on this map. I have also circled on the map the previously approved conditional use permits for non-owner occupied short-term rentals in this zoning district. These applications were approved in 2021 and 2022. At the present time, only 103 Watson Court, 302 Wilkinson, and 511 West Broadway are actually registered as short-term rentals with the city. And I mentioned this in the packet, so you know that the Zoning Update Committee is currently studying the issue of short-term rentals to understand whether they recommend changes to the existing zoning code. In the other two historic zoning districts, Central Business and Special Capital, there is no requirement for a conditional use permit before opening a short-term rental. You just have to register with the city. So I think for that reason, there has been concern about the proliferation of these in some of our historic districts. The Zoning Update Committee is scheduled to meet again on February 23rd. Staff does recommend approval of this proposal as it does meet all of the requirements of the existing zoning regulations and the suggested facts that are found on page 4 of your staff report. We have not received any communications from the public, either for or against, regarding this application. And if the ARB elects to issue the conditional use permit, staff suggests approval with the conditions listed here, which are also found on page 4 of the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Vicki? I don't think we have any questions. Thank you. Would the applicant or a representative of the applicant please come forward and state your name and address?
William Harrod, 310 Long Lane.
Okay, and have you received and read the staff report?
I have not.
You have not. Do you?
I have received it, but I haven't thoroughly read through it yet, no.
Do you agree with the conditions for approval?
Yes, of course.
And the findings in the staff report?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? No questions. All right, is there
Yeah.
anything you would like to tell us?
We just appreciate the opportunity, and we hope that it's a great thing for the area, and we're taking extra measures to make sure that it's a good thing for the community. So, and we appreciate the consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Are there any members of the public here that would like to speak on the proposal? All right, there being none, would the board like to discuss?
Anybody?
Well, I agree and would be willing to make a motion that this meets our design guidelines, but I do think that just looking at the number of these that we are getting, that perhaps maybe we should have a representative at this planning meeting in February to consider what types, if any, cumulative effects might be being made to the communities, particularly residential communities, by this.
I sit on that committee, zoning update.
Yeah, and I mean, I encourage all of us to be there. I mean, I know, again, I feel like this board is put in awkward positions often because, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I would love to put both of these off until after the February meeting. You know, I think the non-owner occupied short-term rental is really what grieves me, you know, but obviously we don't have anything.
Is that an option to table until
Put it off
after?
because you want to look at something else which may affect it?
Well, no, I'm just asking, don't.
No, I mean, I guess you could, but I don't know that that's a,
Viable option.
I really don't want to defend that fact should there be
Okay.
a fee.
I'm just asking. Oh. I helped build this house.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, because it was Habitat. Yeah.
I was
I'm-
told there were like 400,000 more visitors here because of Buffalo Trace a year. And that's where all these Airbnbs are coming from.
Oh, yeah.
And the question I have is, it's bringing a lot of money into the town, but, you know, so I've heard that a lot of the people buying these places are from California, so a lot of the money's going away too at the same time.
Totally, and I mean,
Well, it's also taking a lot of the rental properties for people.
Right.
That are being kicked out,
Right.
that sort of thing. I don't think that probably is something we're supposed to consider, but it certainly.
Right, I know.
Sits
Yeah,
on our-
I think of that too.
it weighs on us, but, and I'm glad that Vicki pointed it out, because I was gonna point out to the board the language at the, bottom of page 3 about the fact that, this is something that is currently being considered, and I want to give the zoning update committee all my respect for tackling the issue. I wish it kind of could have been codified before now, but I do believe this is where we are. I definitely think Patty's on that update committee. I'm willing to go to that update committee meeting, just to ensure that we're there and here and can voice this board's concern with what we see happening.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
I don't mind passing it. I'll just say that. I think we need, motels are dead, and people are going to come downtown and they're going to go to our restaurants and our bars, and I know the little house. I'm okay with it.
Now, those 3 properties are special. They're tucked away. I feel like a lot of people don't even know they're there. But we're getting way off topic, so is there any more discussion amongst the board? I will entertain a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this conditional use permit at 310 Long Lane with the staff suggestions at the bottom of page 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
All right, moving on to the next item of new business. Madam Secretary, if you would please read the proposal in number 5.
In accordance with Articles 4, 17, 18, and 19 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, John McConnell of Blue Cap LLC requests a conditional use permit to operate a non-owner occupied short-term rental at the property located at 501-503 Wapping Street. The property is more particularly identified as PVA map number 061-2402-00300.
Okay, this application is also in the Special Historic Zoning District located at 501, 503 Wapping Street. The building at this location is a historic Italianate house constructed in the 1870s. It is a contributing structure to the Central Frankfort National Register District, which was designated in 2009. Interestingly, the house replaced a log structure known as the Love Tavern, which was the home of General James Wilkinson and also served as Kentucky's earliest state house. But that happened in 1870, so very, very long time ago, but there is a historic marker on the site that talks about that. This application is also for a conditional use permit to operate a non-owner occupied short-term rental. The application also meets the zoning requirements that are found in Article 12 and 19. The property is currently under rehabilitation, and as part of that work, a previous apartment on the first floor is being incorporated back into the house so that it will return to a single-family home configuration. And the applicant intends for the house to be rented to just one party at a time. Here is a PVA map showing the location and the cross streets. Here are some photos of this house from different angles. Here's the rear of the property showing the off-street parking, meeting that requirement. These are photos of Wapping Street in both directions. That is the Orlando Brown House across the street, which is a historic house museum, part of the Liberty Hall Historic Site. This view is looking towards Wilkinson, and this is directly across the street on Wilkinson. And here's another view on Wilkinson, looking towards the river. Again, here's the map that I showed you before. Let's see. Again, just to reiterate, the Zoning Update Committee is currently studying this issue. I've marked the previously approved conditional use permits that happened in 2021 and 2022. And again, at the present time, only 3 of those are actually registered as short-term rentals. So staff also recommends the approval of this proposal as it does meet all of the requirements of the existing zoning regulations and the suggested facts that are found on page 4 of your staff report. We have not received any communications from the public regarding this application either. If the ARB elects to issue the conditional use permit, staff suggests approval, again, with those conditions found on page 4. And also here. Are there any questions?
For Vicki?
I will let you know that the applicant is being represented tonight by his contractor, and we did execute a power of attorney to do that before the meeting.
Thank you. So if the representative for the applicant would like to come forward, please state your name and your address.
Hello, Kevin Breek, 505 St. Clair, Frankfurt.
Thank you. Have you read and reviewed the proposal and all the conditions
Yes,
and agree with them?
yes.
Okay. Are there questions for the applicant's representative?
Has the applicant read this and
Yes.
agrees with everything also?
Yes.
Where's Blue Cap LC located?
I don't know the exact address. I think it's Murray.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, he travels back and forth a lot. He's here a lot.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion for the board?
I have all the sub-comments I had at the earlier review and would reiterate thanks to you and Patty for the meeting in February.
Which, I mean, again, no pressure committee, but, you know, the faster we can codify some of this, the better.
Well, unfortunately, the committee's been occupied with some other things.
Yeah.
And, so, but I'm fairly certain this is high on the list this time. I am curious why there's none of the neighbors have come, especially for this one. You know, since we had quite a few here when the one for Watson Court came up. And should we take that as they support it, or?
I mean, you know, I wondered too if we might see some, but they're not here, and they've been given adequate notice per, you know, the requirements.
Right.
And I think we all know Watson Court is a special place, but not to say all communities in downtown Frankfurt, South Frankfurt are too.
I do think it's safe that we cannot infer their absence one way or another. Means
Yeah.
anything.
But if they're not here, they're not here.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for 501 through 503 Wapping Street with the staff suggestions on page 4. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Sands?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business item number 6. Madam Secretary, if you'll please read the proposal.
In accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance, Jen Spangler Williamson, on behalf of Ryan and Ashley Watts, requests a certificate of appropriateness to construct a rear addition on the existing single-family home at 216 Shelby Street. The property is more particularly identified as PBA map number 062-3102-00400.
Okay, this application is for a property in the Special Capital Historic Zoning District, 216 Shelby Street, and this is a contributing property to the South Frankfort Neighborhood National Register District, which was initially designated in 1985, and there was a later boundary expansion and extension of the period of significance in 2013. This house is fairly old. It is an I-house plan. That term comes from a gentleman named Fred Niffen from Louisiana State University, who studied vernacular architecture back in the 1930s, and he named this plan the I-house because of its regional concentration in the states of Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa, although it is found in many other places as well. But essentially, the plan is one room deep, it's 2 stories tall, has a center passage with a room on each side. This particular example, it has a very, very symmetrical design on the facade with a high level of classical detailing. There's a very thick cornice at the top, pediment at the center, dental detailing at the cornice and in the pediment. But it also has those decorative brackets on the cornice that are associated with the Italianate style. This house is thought to have been built in the last quarter of the 19th century, around 1870s, and it does have a high level of architectural integrity on the street-facing facade. The house has had additions at the rear. There's one 2-story addition and one 1-story addition. This proposal is to extend the 1-story addition to create an area for a first-floor master bedroom suite. The applicant wishes to change the slope of the existing roof on that 1-story addition as part of this work, which will impact the window opening directly above the addition on the rear facade. In addition, the existing exterior entrance to the basement is going to be relocated to the south elevation. And an existing window upstairs on the south elevation may also be removed as part of this project. Some of these final details have not been completely determined yet. The applicant is applying for a Kentucky Historic Preservation Tax Credit, and some of this decision-making, I'm sure, is tied to that review. Here is a PVA map showing the location of the property and the cross streets. You can see there's a large parking lot behind at Hannah Place. Here's a kind of a close-up, zoomed-in view, and you can see, let's see, the 1-story addition is at the bottom there. I don't think I have a pointer here. Do I? No, it doesn't work on the screen. So you see the red roof, right? The one-story addition is the little black square there in the bottom left-hand corner. Here's a 1901 Sanborn map. I've got the property delineated with that rectangle. You can see at that time it had a much larger, longer wing on the north end. Here's some additional photos. You can see both the north and south elevations, a little bit of the two-story addition on the north side, and if you're looking really hard, you can see a little bit of the one-story addition, but it's not really that visible from the street. Here's a view from the parking lot. There is a 6-foot privacy fence behind the house at the property line. Note the very flat roof on the one-story addition existing. And I included this picture from the PBA from 2012, just so you could get a better view of the arrangement of openings at the rear of the property, which are kind of all over the map. Here's a view of that proposed new roof on the one-story addition and the extension, looking from above. And then I've included pieces from the drawings that are in your packets. This is the right side elevation, which would be the north side, the existing view, and the proposed view with the extension and the addition. Here's the rear elevation, the existing view, and the proposed view with the addition. And you can see the difference in the slope of the roof, and you can also see how the applicant is proposing to shrink that window above slightly, the opening there, to accommodate the pitch of the roof. Also in the drawings, there were a couple alternates. I don't know if you noticed that, but the roof on the addition was shown as asphalt shingle, and then also standing seam metal, which matches the original. And I'm sure the applicant can speak more to that, but I'm presuming that final decision might be tied to the tax credit. Yeah. But in either case, it will be a color that corresponds to what's existing, and it's not something that's visible from the street view. Here is the south elevation, the existing conditions showing the chimney. You can see there are two small windows on that two-story rear addition. And one of the alternates in the drawing is to remove one of those windows. That is an interior bathroom on the second floor of that addition, and I think they are trying to figure out how the space is going to be configured, but depending on where things go, they're proposing that the bathroom window, one of them, may be removed. Staff does not find that to be an architecturally significant feature. It's on the addition. I don't even know if those windows are historic. So if it is removed, I would recommend it just be covered with siding and not delineated with any sort of inset the way we sometimes do with historic windows. And you can see the south elevation really does not have a lot of openings on it. And the new extension on the addition just kind of continues that existing pattern. Here are some views of the streetscape. This is a really historic block with some great architectural integrity. And directly across the street, we have a very significant house, the Governor Charles S. Moorhead House, which is individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Here's a view looking to the southeast. This is from across the street. You can see 216 Shelby there in the middle of the photo. So, based on the information in the application and our evaluation within the context of the property's significance, key features, integrity, neighborhood character, and the preservation goals for the city of Frankfort, staff does recommend that this proposal be approved by the Architectural Review Board. The plans as submitted are compatible with the applicable zoning regulations and the suggested findings on page 4 of your staff report. If the ARB elects to issue the certificate of appropriateness, we do suggest that the following conditions, which are also found on page 5, be applied. Some of these, of course, come down to making those final determinations on roofing material and the window upstairs, et cetera, and just making sure that staff gets a chance to look at that and sign off on it. We did receive one comment in support of this application, which I did include with your staff report from a neighbor. And that's all I have, if you have any questions.
Questions for Vicki?
I have an obscure question. What is a Con-E?
Oh,
And-
that's my, it's funny, I always complain about how I hate acronyms, but I don't want to type out certificate of no exterior effect every time
Oh, okay.
I'm doing
Okay.
that. So if you're wondering, and I should have specified,
never
probably a
seen-
long time ago, that's my acronym for that.
I just have never seen it before.
Okay,
I do have a question about the window to be shortened on the back.
yes.
That appears to be on the original structure.
Mhm.
Is that a historic window? Do we know?
I do not know. The applicant would be able to speak to that. But again, given my perspective looking at this, given the arrangement of the windows on the rear elevation and the fact that in contrast to the front of the
Yeah.
house,
I mean,
where the
it's
windows
dressed,
are very
Not the same.
important to conveying that architectural style and the symmetry of the structure. I just feel like the application when you look at it in whole, that loss or shortening of that particular window opening really doesn't have an effect on the overall integrity of the house.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
I have a question for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So we're being asked to consider this, but we're also being asked to consider it with attributes being in flux, such as the windows, the doors, and siding.
Yeah, well, all of those things obviously would meet the special capital design guidelines in order for staff to sign off on them. So the siding is going, and also you have to remember this is a tax credit application, so.
Just wanted to make
To
sure.
verify, she's saying if they do it according to the guidelines of administrative approval, and then it wouldn't have to come back here.
Right.
Yeah. Got a question, Patty? I'm gonna move on.
Well, I'm curious, now that you brought up that window. In the drawings, there's no grids in the front
that they are in the pictures. And I wonder if the rear window that's on the original structure,
It's not a
Has
6
grids
by 6.
also.
I don't think it is. See it?
I think that all of the ones on that upper floor are 1/1 double hung.
Yeah.
and they look like they've been replaced at some
They
point.
To me,
probably,
they do,
yeah.
don't
Okay.
they? Not
Okay.
like the ones on the front.
I mean,
Right.
I think in some earlier things, we've said, okay, if that's an original window, please take it out, put it in a garage.
Right.
So
Right.
that
Yeah.
if somebody comes along later and wants it,
To restore it,
Definitely.
they can pop it back in.
But I don't even think that looks like it's the original.
No, it doesn't, no.
The hole may be, but I don't think.
Yeah, it might,
No, I
be the
just-
same
I
size dimension. Because all the fronts are the exact same size.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're narrow and give you that
Right.
really upward movement of the front of the house. It's so beautiful. The back's kind of, I don't know.
A smorgasbord.
Yeah.
That's what you call it, for sure.
Precious.
Yeah.
It's not very visually pleasing on the back at all.
Any other questions? No,
Thank you, Vicki.
you are welcome.
Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant present? And if so, please come forward, state your name and address.
I'm Jen Williamson. I'm at 407 Wapping Street. Ashley Watts, 216 Shelby Street. So let's go right to the question of the window.
So you did-
She knows.
Did receive the staff report.
We received the staff
You did?
report, yes.
Okay. And agree with the findings and conclusions and conditions.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So my apologies. I continue to try to tame this drafting software we use.
Right?
We are, in fact, although you can't see it, it's very faintly in there showing the 4/4 sash pattern that is on the front windows.
Okay.
I just, if I don't tell the computer to make the mullion pattern thick enough to be thicker than the glass that it prescribes, and
It's all
it's not what we're
architectural,
talking
yeah.
about. If you look really carefully, you might be able to make it out, but we're working on that. It'll be better next time. But we do have 4/4 windows on the front. The rear window, like the rear windows on the second story addition, that Sanborn map with the longer addition, that was a 1-story addition. The second story came later apparently. Anyway, this window on the back does not have it's a little bit wider. It's a little higher off the floor. The sill is not as low as the front windows, and it is a replacement sash that is currently 1/1.
Okay.
So I think that the opening at some point maybe was changed, but I can't say for sure what the first window on the back was.
So it's not even the same length as the front?
The front windows come very
Yeah.
low, like within 8 inches of the floor in the front. This window in the back has a sill height of at least 18 inches, I think, off from memory. And what we're trying to address the obvious issue of EPDM flat roof with this work, as this work takes place, to kind of get a good pitch on that roof, and then have a roofing material, so we don't have 3 different roofing materials. You know, we proposed, and we have yet to hear back on the tax credit application, to do an asphalt shingle roof on the back. There's a small canopy there that you can see on this picture over the rear entry door, and it has red 3-tab asphalt shingle on that, and that's our base proposal for the new roof that would go on the addition and over the flat roof section.
And that red matches the red metal?
Well, as much as red asphalt shingle,
Yeah, I mean,
3-tab
it doesn't
can
look
match
drastic
a med-
in that.
Yeah,
Compliments.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good word. Okay. Any other questions?
Can we see a picture, a different picture on there of how the roof goes up in the back past the window? Like what's proposed to be on there? Is there the button?
oh, is this mine?
Yeah.
So if you can see there, basically the addition has hip form of roof to the edge, and then the ridge comes up, and then another hip kind of comes up into that interior corner. So as it rises into the corner, it would pitch up, and then, but it rises it higher than we really can work with that existing sill height.
Could you go, let's see if this thing works. No. Could you go up halfway and then go across level with the roof? I don't know if you know what I'm saying.
No, I'm not sure I know what you're saying.
That'll work. You see how you've got the hip there at the end, the triangle at the very top? Could you, and you got that bisecting line down the middle. Could you run that all the way over to the old
I guess
part?
so, but that would give us a section of flat roof again.
And then give a. I got a picture of it I drew here, but it would get rid of that upward piece that goes up there.
I mean, I think we're just trying to get a pitch on a roof that matches roofing material manufacturer's recommendations rather than having another section of flat roof.
Yeah, I don't.
With this exercise.
It wouldn't be a section of flat roof. Let's see what I'm talking about.
That
You could do
I must not
that.
understand
Or
what you
you
mean.
could go like that. I don't mind it coming up like that. I could show you what I'm talking about. It might be a possibility to bring the roof down some after this is over. I don't mind passing it.
Okay.
It's just an option possible.
Okay. With regard to the material question, I mean, our intention is to have a cement board lap siding that would match the same exposure that's on the existing house, a detailed corner board trim, and painted with the trim color, kind of as it's illustrated in the drawings. But I think in total there was just an interest because we have not gotten fully through the tax credit review process and gotten full sign off on those components to have this application in total come back to staff to check off on all of those components. So
What door is in flux here?
there's a new door to the basement. I presume
Okay.
maybe that's what we're talking
On the
about.
side?
Okay, so
There's a
that's-
new door proposed. So on this side, which is the south side, there is an existing, currently on the house towards the parking lot. There, you can see the top of it there on the lower right corner. There's an areaway and an exterior concrete stair that goes down to an exterior entrance to the basement. There's an existing stair in the center of the house at the center entry that goes to the basement too, but it's very narrow and it's not good for like bringing a water heater up and down or whatever. So this is here, but obviously if we're adding over that areaway for the addition, we don't have that access any longer. So we're just trying to provide a complementary access to the basement that would allow for a wider path for bringing, equipment, or replace the air handler, something, without tearing the house back open again.
Gotcha, thank you.
So it's a new door that would go here. And this one-story addition that we're adding to and roofing over, it's distinct from the older parts of the building. The stone foundation ends with that gable and that chimney that you see there, and there's a board form. It's a concrete board form foundation that's from the 20th century under this one-story piece. So that's where that door is right there on that seam in the newer part of the house. So
It's not visible from the right of way, is it?
well, I mean, there was this one picture you had that showed the side, and you can, this, I think
It's about 6 feet apart from the next house, so.
it's a pretty narrow gap. The chimney sits off there's an offset of the chimney from the wall, so it's.
And there's a gate too. I don't know if you can see that or not by the chimney. There's a gate that connects the two houses that kind of covers that. So, a wooden gate.
Shields.
Any more questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you. Discussion, you ready for a motion? I'm ready for a motion.
Alrighty, Madam Chair. I would move the approval based on the findings on page 4 and along with conditions on page 5 in accordance with Articles 4 and 17 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance. The approval for a certificate of appropriateness to construct a rear addition on the existing single-family home at 216 Shelby Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Madam Secretary, please call a roll.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Sands?
Yes.
Ms. Conkle?
Yes.
Ms. Oberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 7 of new business, citizens' comments.
Uh-oh.
Please state your name and address.
Jen Williamson, 407 Walking Street. I did not come here today to make a comment and citizens' comments, but in the course of this meeting, while we were talking about conditional use permits and kind of wondering about public participation in the meeting, it occurred to me that it would be worth pointing out that your notifications only go to directly adjacent property owners on all sides of the property, and I think only directly across the street. And I would venture to say that maybe with some of these changes of use, whether it be for the short-term stay in a non-owner occupied building or some of the commercial uses that get brought into some of the residential districts, that if the broader neighborhood isn't being notified of that change of use, unless they're really like ear to the ground, like a very small handful of us are paying attention to all of this, they don't know that these changes are happening until well after they have been approved and are taking place. So just in the sake of having better public participation with these things that are concerning and have an effect on our neighborhoods, I might suggest that radius maps might be used in place of adjacent neighbors for change of use, because it's tough on the other end when people are upset a change of use has taken place and feel like that they weren't notified. Many cities and communities will tag the 4 corners of the property and do as much as a 200-foot, a 500-foot radius, and that will give you a notification process that will get many more of the neighbors who will actually be impacted by that change of use, but don't happen to be directly adjacent to the property in question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, I know we have public notice requirements.
Yes, if you look in the staff report, at the very end, you will see the letter that was mailed to adjoining property owners, and there's an inclusion of the list of addresses. Jen is right, the current practice is to mail only to the adjacent or adjoining. And we err on the side of caution, but we don't choose.
What about our meeting notices? Those have to be publicized in advance, right?
The meeting, the publication of the meeting, there is a legal ad, so it is posted twice in the newspaper before the meeting.
But it just says conditional use permits. It
Yeah.
really doesn't elaborate.
I mean, it basically has the same language that Dawn reads when she introduces the application.
It identifies the property and identifies what's going to be done. I think what Ms. Williams is asking
Is the
is that
direct.
we go even further. I'd suggest we may think about putting it on the website to allow more exposure. If we start going though to doing a 5-mile radius, we're gonna have some additional administrative costs that I don't know we want to.
Jordan was here, he'd be screaming.
Yeah.
But
He would be
just,
saying,
Yeah.
50-some cents every time. we
yeah,
send it
no,
out.
he'd be screaming. Let me just, or I will lose this thought, Patty, I know I
I'm
will.
gonna hold on to mine.
Is this something to bring up with the zoning committee that they write into their, if they make changes about how public notification for the conditional
They would
use?
have to make, if they're going to deviate from the statute, you can make it more extensive, but you cannot diminish the
Gotcha.
statute. So they could be able to do that.
Okay.
Do we do anything with notifications on like Facebook? And the reason I'm asking is there's the process called geofencing, which allows the folks who have Facebook within a certain
To
physical
receive.
block to get that particular post will pop up in their feed.
Do you want to do Twitter? Do you want to do Instagram? Do you-
Oh.
Yeah.
And
I'm not
not
on Facebook.
TikTok. I
I'm
do
on
not want
social
to
media.
see.
Yeah,
Pop up in mine.
I mean, I know a lot of people are on Facebook, but that's really not a legal.
Right.
Well, I see where you're coming from. It's not
I'm kind of
considered.
like saying somebody's going to go, well, you require them to use Facebook, why don't you require them to use Instagram? Why don't
Right,
you-
right, right, right,
It's like,
right.
I'm not on any of them.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
Why didn't you mail it to me?
yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
thing, you know?
I just thought it was an option that maybe not be required, but something that could be
Done.
used
Yeah.
if someone picked up that little skill.
Maybe we could just ask the question, how difficult would it be? Would it be burdensome on existing staff just to do, a view shed of everything visible? Because that would encompass more than adjacent properties. But is that a reasonable ask moving forward?
As a mailing or as
I don't.
No.
And I'm confused, is it like codified somewhere that it has to be adjacent? Like, do we have to go through a formal process to expand
The
this?
notification requirements, as I understand it, are in KRS.
Yes,
right?
it's statutory, that's why we
Yes.
can't
We can't go,
diminish them.
but we
Yeah.
could as a city adopt.
We could, as a city, adopt an ordinance that requires
Yeah.
additional, yes.
But if we were going to adopt, it would be across the board, correct? It wouldn't just be that.
I think it would be, and I don't think we get to adopt it, I think it has to be done through city ordinance.
Right.
So
we
this,
can make a
let me bring it up
recommendation,
with
but the
this
city would
zoning
have to.
too. Don't you think, and kind of,
I will say, we do post the properties, those signs are pretty visible. Most of the time, when I do get calls about things, it's because people see the sign.
yeah.
That's true.
Do encourage all members of the public to come to the committee meeting and be engaged in this community conversation moving forward. Yes. Yes. All right. Moving on to new business item number 8, the 2023 work session. And Vicki's gonna present this proposal for us. And Vicki, I think we have 2 new members, so we might just simply tell them kind of what this is.
Madam Chair, I have discussed this with Vicki. I've got an obligation I'd like to go see. She didn't think I would need to be here for hers. But I do want to mention that sometime this year, I'd like to do another procedural
Robert's rules.
work session, either on the rules or just on what we need to do with findings of fact, what we need to do with, conclusions of all those kind of things.
Hopefully, we're improving each year though, aren't we?
Yes, ma'am. I know better than to answer that in any other way.
You know that I will welcome that
The-
training anytime.
As each chairman progresses, it gets better and better. So
Oh, now he's insulting the old ones.
No,
Now, see,
no, we
that's
were
just
all
my-
learning.
You're taking my argument just a minute ago about Facebook and turning it on me, Patty. That's terrible.
We're learning, each and every one, yes. Thank you.
If there's any questions, I don't mind staying, but I would like to.
I think we're
I've
good.
had a directive from elsewhere, is what I'm saying.
I understand, yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
Good night, guys. Okay, let's see, where to start? Well,
Ask it about the dates.
I asked him, and he said he would be good with either of them.
Okay, good.
Okay. So I'll start with this. There is a sheet that I put before you so that we could discuss the 2023 work session. And this board has a work session every year because we are a certified local government and because we're in that partnership with the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. There are some additional responsibilities that this board has to carry out to meet the obligations of that partnership. So we have been scheduling a work session once a year to kind of hit a whole bunch of things, do some training, talk about what's happened over the last year, and then develop a work plan for going forward into the next year. And the last 2 years, which are the only years I've been here with you to do this, we have done this session in February. And that makes the most sense for the reason that the certified local government grant applications are due in March. And it's nice to have this board weigh in and hopefully, take a look at what staff is recommending and then pass a resolution of support that can go to the Board of Commissioners when they're looking at it and deciding whether or not to authorize the match for the grant. So the problem is we have to legally notice this meeting, right? And we also have to make sure we don't conflict with any of the other meetings, of which there are many, including the one that you all already have scheduled in February. And so in looking at that calendar and checking with Dawn and making sure that I have time to get the legal ad in 2 weeks before, there are only 2 dates available to do this work session. February 7th and February 8th. So I'm hoping that you can choose one. And I hope that the new members can be at the one that is chosen because they will probably get the most benefit from this process being new to the commission. And then after you all have decided on a date, I have put together a draft agenda for you to look at. It's just a start, but if you want to add anything to that or whatever before I do the legal ad, this would be your time to do it.
I would like to suggest February the 7th, if that's possible.
Me too.
What day is that?
Tuesday nights are way better than Wednesdays for
It's
me.
a Tuesday night?
Yeah.
I'll go with whatever's best for everybody.
I don't seem to have conflicts, I don't think.
I have a question. On your draft item number 1 for the design review considerations, will you have, or would the consultant that's been working on the guidelines for South Frankfurt be able to talk a little about that at the work session?
Well, that consultant is in Columbus. We are probably about at the 50% point with that project. I don't know that we're at a point where I want to put it out there for you all to comment on yet. But when we get to that point, it will go to the zoning update committee. And what I would like, actually, I should have added something here to the development of the 2023 work plan. I should have added, I would like to add, including subcommittee assignments. Because it would be really good to have a couple of you committed to going to that zoning update committee meeting where the special capital design guidelines will be, so that you can gather comments from the others and take them to that meeting and move that forward. But yeah, I don't think we would be in a position to talk about the draft at the work session.
And what time would the work session be?
Same time as this meeting, if that works for everybody, 5 o'clock. The number one item on the draft agenda, the design review considerations, that is basically just kind of the presentation that I gave 2021, 2 years ago now. I'll just bring that back out for the benefit of the new members so that we can go over the different historic districts and the boundaries, periods of significance, and talk about the things that we typically encourage board members to think about as they're formulating a rationale for their decisions.
Perhaps that could be something that we very broadly got the public notice out about as well. That we're having, since we're announcing anyway, the public can be engaged with our Tuesday, February 7th meeting. Perhaps it would be beneficial for not just us and the new members, but the public to be aware of the type of presentation.
Yes, it would be great if we could stream it again, maybe with the plant board's assistance. I will say that last year Ed encouraged me to put on the agenda and on the legal notice that because it's a work session, we would not have the input or comment from the public at the meeting. But it is an educational meeting, I think, and the public would benefit from seeing it. We will put a packet together in advance that will be on the agenda center. We will do the legal notice as required.
Will you send us all the 2022 work plan again, particularly the new board members? Just, I think it's good for us to be able to refer back to that.
Yes.
As we move forward.
Yes. I will send that to you tomorrow. Is there any, do you have any questions about anything I put on the draft agenda? The item at the end, the review of select case outcomes, that was something I did last year for the first time. Did you all find that beneficial? Yeah, okay.
I liked them. It's nice to see.
Is there anything held over? 'Cause your
Don't,
question
yeah.
about the 2022 work plan and getting it again. Do you know, have you glanced at it already to see if we met the?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of items that have been carried over for a couple of years for really structural reasons, you know, the reasons we're not being able to move forward with them. And of course, we'll talk about that again at the work session and make that effort to either move that ball down the field or try something different.
And it's a time to introduce new, exciting things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So. So we just had February 7th?
February 7th, if you all agree.
Yes.
And is there anything else you'd like to change about the draft agenda, or should I put this out?
Do we need to give ourselves open, you know, like in case somebody says, well, I saw where some commission did this and just it's a random thought, or that can just fall under one of these? I just want to make sure we.
I believe each of these things will be open for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before can we, when we get the 2022 plan out for everybody, can we have, just, I realize we've got to make
We've
this
got
public
deadlines,
notice,
yeah.
but like just a couple days to consider it before you have to put it in the paper?
Maybe a couple days, like February 7th. I need to get that legal ad to them 2 weeks prior, which is like tomorrow.
That would be-
Okay, all right.
No,
add more
I'm just
things
saying
to
that. We
this
might have
agenda?
wiggle room of a couple days,
Literally like maybe 24 hours.
but maybe literally like 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I will send it to you tomorrow, and if that is a possibility, I will let you know.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to do anything, I just want to have all the information available before we.
Right.
I don't want to like
I-
add
I ju-
anything or take away, I just want to
I
have,
just, you seem to be wanting to add something I didn't know.
just want all the information.
I think, yeah, transparent, yeah.
Now, this meeting is what, around 2 hours? Is that what you're anticipating?
I would think that would, that's probably a reasonable assumption. I don't think it will go longer than that.
Okay. I don't think it'll
I'll
go
try
much
really
longer.
hard to keep it on track.
It was
Yeah.
somewhat lengthy last year, I think.
Is that how long it was last year? I don't quite remember.
It was longer.
It was longer.
Okay. Well, I have a little flexibility with how many cases I choose to show you. I can keep that minimal.
Okay. But I think those are helpful.
They are helpful.
I think the agenda is excellent, the way it is.
So we'll go for Tuesday, February 7th, meeting at 5, concluding when we get done, but hoping to stick to around a couple hours. How's that?
No, that sounds good.
The design review considerations presentation, that should take 20 minutes max. And then we'll have a few maybe a few minutes for questions, especially for the new members if they have some. So maybe that'll be the first 30 minutes. And then I think, there's the recap of what we've done isn't going to take very long. Just figuring out how we want to change the work plan for next year. The grant application recommendation, I don't think that's going to take long. That one is pretty straightforward. And the annual report, again, that should be pretty straightforward. So I really can't imagine that it's going to be longer than 2 hours.
Okay.
We'll probably, I don't want to promise, but I would think we'd be less.
So in other words, when we get to 2 hour, 1 minute, Patty and I are both going to be broken.
There you go.
That's in the list as well.
Do we need to look that up and add it to work?
I think it's already covered in the ordinance. The annual report from our board to the Board of Commissioners, that's something that's already codified in either the CLG agreement or the ordinance, right?
Yeah, I forget what month you all did that last
Does it
year.
seem like in spring or summer?
I could go back and look. I can't quite remember exactly when it was done, but we do it, that is a good idea to remind the board what's been done relating to historic preservation.
Might add that, we'll find out when it is. That's where, you all know, that's where we go to the,
We know.
yeah, okay, just making sure. We just report to the City Board of Commissioners what this board did throughout the year. For some reason, I feel like it was spring or summer, though. I don't know why.
We've only done it 1 or 2 times,
Oh,
maybe
gotcha.
max. I know that Nicole did it 1 year.
Last year,
We did. Yeah. And then did you do it?
I went with her, but she did
Oh,
it,
okay.
yeah.
So we had not done that prior to that time.
Okay. I think that's everything, right?
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
We've got a date, we've got a time. And then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Everyone in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all, and welcome new board members.